Paul, we're back. Gameweek 1, done and dusted. How did you fare?
I think middle of the road, so not overly excited, but not too disheartened. I'd say I'm pretty happy with my stable start. What about you?
Yeah, about the same. I think I'm a couple of points behind. I'm quite happy actually. I think I'm a bit happier than you because I'm not sure how many players are in the game. I think there's well over 200,000.
270,000, I think it
Yeah,
was.
and what are you? You're ranked 14k and I'm 21k. Top 10% already
Yeah,
after 1 week. It's not bad, I don't think. I'm pretty enjoyed the football. Enjoyed Spurs, other than somehow Kane and Son getting nothing and a 4-1 win at home. Well, Son assist, but yeah, I had 89 points. No transfers used. Haaland looked an absolute beast. What
yeah,
did you make of Haaland?
yeah. I thought he looked excellent. The weird thing is like if you didn't start with Haaland, or even if you did, I guess the move was so you could captain him against Bournemouth in game week
It
2.
was.
So anything you were getting in game week 1 was kind of bonus. I was just hoping that he would outscore the City defenders that would have been my alternative option. So I was quite happy. I was very happy with the outcome there. Yeah.
Mitrovic and Zinchenko are probably a couple of people we talked about a bit in pre-season. Maybe not so much Mitrovic, but I think they mentioned going Mitrovic and Wilson up front in the kind of big at the back team, and he's looking good, isn't he?
Yeah, and I know I always slag you for Callum Wilson, but it's not because I don't think Callum Wilson's a good fantasy option. I guess it's like you're 1 week away from him breaking down and his hamstring going again or something. But no, both of them look excellent as well.
What else kind of caught your eye on the weekend, Paul?
Well, looking at the total points, you knew that if Man City or Liverpool kept a clean sheet, you'd expect to see all their defenders on there. One thing that was interesting to me was the Chelsea defenders. So Chelsea kept a clean sheet, and only Ben Chilwell, and that's because of his assist to the penalty, appears on the top scorers list. Their passing stats look well off it. Koulibaly was taken off after 70 odd minutes. He didn't make passing as well, so only a 7-point return from him. I'd been a bit disappointed had I perhaps doubled up on Chelsea defenders or went down that route.
I think Silva might have got tier 1.
He scraped tier 1.
Tier 1, yeah.
But you'd expect against Everton to be picking up a full house of tier 2s, at least for the centre halves anyway. But yeah, that was quite surprising. So perhaps want to keep an eye on. I know there's a game day coming up where the Chelsea assets look the best players to captain, and perhaps worth keeping an eye on over the next week or two before piling in there and going for what would be a dependable, clean sheet and passing bonus for them.
Interesting, because Fofana 7.5 could be an option then, couldn't he? Which would be probably a bit of a game changer in terms of if you're able to have, say, Saliba and Fofana at 7.4 and 7.5, that does release a lot of funds, doesn't it?
I just have no idea who the back right. So they've just signed Aspilicueta onto a new deal.
Yeah.
Cucurella, who there's talk about playing both left wing back and left side of the back three. But that's, even though I think Koulibaly is right footed, but he traditionally played on the left. That was kind of where Rudiger played for Chelsea as well. So yeah, I think it's all up for debate just now. Definitely keep my eye on the Chelsea defenders, but I've not got any real plans and planned moves there yet.
And yeah, they're just, I suppose, interesting points. Liverpool clean sheet bust, and Man City absolute full house of passing. I can't believe what a one-sided game. I did expect West Ham to put up, I wouldn't say more of a fight. It was clear what they were trying to do, just kind of keep it kind of 1-0, then try and maybe nick an equaliser. But talk about complete and utter domination. They destroyed him, didn't they?
Yeah, I thought about a couple of points on this for me. I think West Ham scored in every home league game last season, so 19 out of 19. Because I had a few apologies if I didn't reply to a few people messaged me before the first kickoff yesterday, but I was at Easter Road for the Edinburgh Derby, so I don't get particularly great signal in there. asking about moves on Man City players. So I think this was a common theme amongst the Sky Twitter community, the Sky Sports Fantasy Twitter community yesterday, about whether they should move on 2-for-nothings on the Liverpool to Man City and then back to Liverpool for the Crystal Palace game a week tonight, that is. I'm still not sure what the value of a transfer is with the changes to the game. I'm going to start mapping it out once a few game weeks have played out with the 10 extra transfers over the season. If you think about what's the top tier players' average points per game, it's roughly about 7.5. So if I'm looking at, is it worth moving to a Man City defender and that 2-for-nothing? That's 2 transfers, remember, 1 transfer to get them in and 1 transfer to get them back out. And even at the top tier, if they're averaging 7.5, I was thinking about the West Ham scoring record at home as well. I'd have to get, if I was getting, say, 15 points, so 1 clean sheet and then 1 concede a goal but pick up passing bonus in both games, is a transfer worth 7.5 points if you're getting a 15-point return? I'm not saying it's definitely not, but it just feels a bit light, in my opinion anyway. Even if I was guaranteed the 20 points, which is a big ask, I think, from Man City. Maybe not so much now because they got the hard of the 2 fixtures out of the way. Yeah. But if I was guaranteed the 20 points, perhaps it's something I would have considered. But with that being, I would say the ceiling, obviously there's an outside chance of a goal, etc. But with the averages, playing averages, I'm just not convinced that it was the right move to make for me in that situation.
I agree, and the thing with City as well is you're not sure what the back four is even going to look like week to week. Okay, we can fairly Cancelo and Walker at the moment are probably nailed, but Ake could move to left back. Cancelo could move to right back with Stones and Diaz in the middle. The thing with the Liverpool defence, Spurs defence, and other defences, you kind of know there's 2 or 3. Well, in Liverpool's there's 4, right? Rock solid picks who are started 99% of the time. Yeah. So still a bit unsure. Ake obviously 8 million, amazing option, easy 10-pointer yesterday. Is he going to start next week? I don't know. I'd guess so, but you don't know, do you? So really tough. But interesting start and interesting. Like Salah and Haaland obviously off an absolute bang, and Kane and Son not so, but a good start. And I think
still, even for Kane and Son, it wasn't. They got 4 and 7 points, whilst people were expected more at the home game against Southampton. I mean, 7 points from Son, but he was a forward last year. That's like an appearance points and a goal.
But, you're right. Yeah. Nice. Off with a bang, and the template has started pretty well, I think. If you think of, obviously aside from maybe Liverpool defence and maybe Brennan Johnson blank, but other than that, it's been quite a successful start for the template. Welcome to everyone in the chat. Colin Johnson didn't go for Haaland over Son as he captained Salah. Lesson learned. Gio Boys is in. Says always captain the most highly owned captain. I captained Madison over Haaland. Dale Turner's in. Sussex Marlett, Niall Murphy, Glenn Murray, Johnny White, Kieran Sutton, Amandeep Tatler, Kicking Up Dust, and so many others. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. We will no doubt answer lots of questions as we go through. Paul, what are we talking about today?
Yeah, so we've got a few things to talk about. The budget enablers. So I think there's quite a few come to prominence. We were debating over which one was the right one to start with. Could you potentially move to 2 budget enablers and free up a freemium type formation, or big at the back and big at the front? So definitely a few options there. A couple other things noticed from the weekend's games, and then I've devised a small short list of players as well that I was going to talk about.
Exciting stuff. We'll also preview Gameweek 2 and answer the usual masses of Twitter questions. So Paul, first, the cheap enablers. This is a really, really important conversation.
Yeah, so what came to light last season was the emergence of Conor Gallagher, and it's almost a reference now that we think about when we're trying to pick up the budget enabler. Jacob Ramsey was another as well from Villa last season. So there's a lot of talk about Palhinha at the start of the season. I thought he was excellent against Liverpool.
Incredible. His legs were everywhere, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was way off passing and such like, but you're never expected to pick up passing bonus against Liverpool anyway. At 6.6 million, he picked up 5 points, so tier 2 tackles. But this is the kind of stats that he came into from the Portuguese league last year. I'd mentioned that he was averaging 3 tackles a game there from his 27 appearances and 3 goals as well. And he scored in pre-season, so I definitely think that he has rewarded those managers that went from the start. I think 5 points is the top end of what I would have been hoping for in the opening game. So if you don't own him, I would perhaps keep an eye on him and look at a position where he perhaps plays in the second game day and look to bring him in there. A few of the other budget enablers. Kamara from Aston Villa, 6.8 million. He picked up 4 points, so he picked up passing bonus, when I did think it was tackling bonus that I would have been looking for from him as well. So another one to keep an eye on if there's any single game days coming up for Villa. Gibbs White, 6.6 million. He only picked up 2 points. With the move to Forest, I'm not sure that heightens his appeal either. Although paying 40 million, you expect he's going to get game time. How he fits into that system, I'm not sure. But I think he would be, if I held him just now, I would continue to hold him for the next couple of weeks and see how that transitions. O'Brien from Forest only picked up the 1 point. He was booked. I know that at 6.6 he was another alternative to Palhinha at the start. And Yates, I think, was the other one that we talked about pre-season, but he didn't feature for Forest, so he's one to keep an eye out for when he's back.
It was a Southampton player, Lavia.
Lavia, yeah,
started as well, didn't he?
Yeah, so he's on my watch list because
sorry,
because I'm not throwing out the two enablers theory of something that kind of lightheartedly could do. I genuinely think that this could be an option because there's so much value around the 6.5 to 7 million bracket this season.
Yeah.
He picked up 50 passes, 2 tackles, and I don't even think he was the most defensive out of the Southampton midfielders. They did play him, Romeo, and Ward-Prowse, which I'm not 100% sure would be the case if they were playing kind of one of the lesser teams in the Premier League. So he's definitely on my watch list and one person I'm considering moving for if he continues recent form. He didn't pick up any Sky bonus, so perhaps he will continue to go under the radar until he starts producing those bonus points as well.
And the only one, the quite highly owned Brennan Johnson, obviously did do an awful lot today. Didn't see much of him in the highlights. Newcastle played well as we expected. Hold for now.
Yeah, I think so. They play a couple of single match days coming up, and I certainly wouldn't be advising taking him out and then only to bring him in again if he performs well. Or
question off Niall in the chat, and this is quite a popular question as well. It's still worth bringing in and captaining Kane and Son on Sunday. So your next one, Paul, was kind of looking at transfer strategy, because the popular move we discussed last week and it's been on Twitter, etc., was going Haaland to Kane. But if you do that and you don't, and you lose Haaland, it's all of a sudden looking quite a frightening prospect.
Yeah, I think so. So if you don't own Haaland already, you would have to lose someone that's not played next game week to then take advantage of him. Now, he could easily be the top scorer and will be the most captained player on Saturday. But does the West Ham game change anything? He was always going to be the most popular pick next Saturday anyway, and I think I would have transitioned to that move anyway. Or is this perhaps then moving Haaland back out to get Kane in against Chelsea? So on that front, so I guess this is the Haaland to Kane and then back to Haaland. So you get the 2 games for Kane, one in the captaincy. So when I was speaking about the Man City, Liverpool to Man City option there, we're talking 7.5 points for the transfer. If we're expecting kind of at the top end of what the averages are for players per game, I think Jesus away to Bournemouth could be a decent captain shout on Saturday the 20th as well. So you're removing the captaincy from a highly owned player like Jesus to move on to Kane, and then will you score enough points to warrant the 2 transfers and the move off Jesus to Kane? Such a difficult question to answer. And I think if you've not got any fires to put elsewhere in your team, using a couple of transfers this early on isn't a problem, and it's something that I'm definitely going to consider myself, because I'm in that position. I would expect Spurs to pick up passing bonus at home to Wolves as well, though. So could you captain Dyer or could you captain Romero in that fixture? I think that's also an alternative. I still think that that's the way that, with no other information right now, that's probably the way that I'm going to go. Haaland to Kane and then back to Haaland. There's going to become a point in time very soon, I think, where having Kane, Haaland and Salah is what I want to do. And therefore maybe looking at another budget player in midfield to be able to do that.
Fixtures are so good. I mean,
for all
of them. At the end of August, Man City have got back-to-back home games against Palace and Forest. On the same days, Liverpool have got back-to-back home games against Bournemouth and Newcastle. And in that time, Spurs are away to Forest, away to West Ham. I mean, it's so tough. I do think we've maybe got a little bit of recency bias, just in terms of, because Haaland smashed it yesterday, Salah got a big haul of the weekend. Maybe if they've only got one return each and Liverpool have kept a clean sheet, potentially we'd have been a little bit more, maybe a bit more reserved. But recency bias is a massive thing, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, do you know if we got information before then that perhaps Laporte was out longer term?
Yeah.
And then moving to Ake to kind of cover us off in a downgrade there. And then even shifting someone else onto a budget midfielder for set your team up, the structure your team up longer term, then I think that you could easily have those 3 and still not and still have a good balance across the squad as well.
I agree. Just a quick thought, I suppose. A Thiago to Paulinho, say, if you haven't got him, because obviously Thiago went off with a hamstring injury. Would that bag you 1.3 million? Just talking of
7.9.
7.9. Just talking of transfers and stuff. Just out of interest, my 2 teams. Just talking about strikers against big at the back. So I'm doing an experiment this year. So my first team I'm playing normally. My second team I'm doing big at the back. My first team where I captained Salah and Haaland got 89 points this week. My big at the back team where I captained Van Dijk and Cancelo got 60 points. So a 29-point swing, which is quite a lot, I think. Actually, I have got quadruple Liverpool defense, in all fairness, in that other one, so that's probably a bit mitigated. But 29 points, if Liverpool had kept a clean sheet, it would probably only be about would that be about 15? No less than that, sorry. Maybe 20 points. But interesting start, interested to see if it carries on. But the way it's going, these big teams look like they're going to score a lot of goals, don't they? And if Fofana goes to Chelsea and we manage to get in Saliba, Fofana, Paulinho, just for example, or one, give us White or whatever else, you could have 4 starting decent enablers, and then just bang them all in, I suppose, couldn't you?
I can't remember if it was. I seen a stat the other day. I can't remember if it was from the turn of the year or for when Conte took over, that goal involvement, so assists plus goals, the top 3 players are all Spurs players: Kane, Son, and Kulusevski.
Yeah.
So, and the goals and assists are going to come for Son and Kane as well.
We will. Anything else on transfer kind of strategy at the moment, Paul?
No, as I say, I'm being relatively coy on what I'm doing. I'm not going over and above. I think there will be opportunities further down the season to make similar gains as what's just been done on the Liverpool Man City. So I do like the thought of using daisy chain transfers to get in big hitting defenders. I think that's like a really viable strategy. I just want to be clear in my head of where I value a transfer at, which I've not yet come to a conclusion on that. So
I think for me, after thinking about it all, I think my strategy is going to be at the moment anyway. Just I'll probably go for Kane, probably go back to Haaland, and then make a call after that. But I don't think I'm going to be doing much more than that. I just think post overhaul, when the FA Cup kicks in and all this kind of stuff, all the there's going to be so many 3-for-1s, 4-for-1s, probably the odd 5-for-1 as well, the way things land and stuff. And I just can't get past the thought, how Ian plays, how successful he's been the last couple of seasons. And I just think jumping in on a defense, especially Man City defense, which we're not sure how it's going to line up, compared to, we're going to be reasonably sure how it's going to line up in January and February, for example. When you get these really big swings, instead of like, a 2-for-1 or a 2-for-0, where you're not sure what lineup's going to be, I think I'm going to hold back. I think this opening weekend has given me a bit of confidence because, obviously 89 points, okay, it's not up there in the upper realms at all, but it's given me a decent look. I've got Paulinho in place, which I'm really happy with. Got, Saliba in place, double Spurs defence, Cancelo, Van Dijk. I've got a pretty solid team, started off reasonably well, so I don't feel like I have to, if I'd have only scored 50 points, I would already be thinking, oh my goodness, you have to get it back. But I think for me, I'm going to hang on. But I know, in the WhatsApp groups, and you can tell in the WhatsApp groups, you can tell the people who are new because they're crazy to use transfers. And it's funny because all the people who have been in there a long time in the Hub WhatsApp groups, like, whoa, calm down. There's I think there's one new one in the Telegraph group that used 5 transfers over the weekend. It's like, whoa, calm down. The long old game. So I think that's going to be my plan. Let us know in the chat if you're going to be a bit more aggressive, or whether you're going to, or whether you are going to hold off, or maybe somewhere in the middle. It'd be really interesting. It's brilliant this season because it's unprecedented in Sky, right? It's fantastic. There's no right or wrong answer. We don't know, do we? So.
Yep. Yeah, and what I was going to say, so at the start, I sounded a bit despondent, and you're right. You pointed out that like 14K or something like that overall, and maybe that's a mindset of looking at Twitter too much, and then I know that there'll be more people posting better scores than those people that would normally post lower. That's not to say anyone that scores a low score that's a content creator or regularly posts won't do that. I'm not saying that at all, but it's more likely that you'd post if you're not a regular poster, if you've got a good score, than if you've got a bad score. So maybe I'm getting into that kind of groupthink mentality for that.
Well, you're in the top 5% of all players already, Paul. So
yeah,
not a bad start. Not a bad start at all. Watch list. Who is on your radar? Who is going under the radar, Paul?
So I messaged you last night saying, could you update the slides? So anyone that's watching this on YouTube, I've got a picture of Aronson, and I watched Match of the Day, and I thought he looked really good. I thought he looked very lively. He was close to getting on the end of the second Leeds goal that Norrie put in at the end. I did go back and have a look at his stats. He is only 21, so it's maybe hard to judge on his history, but I think he scored like 3 professional goals. So. Yeah, maybe I rushed into putting him there, but I did like what I saw from him. So keep an eye on him, especially if Leeds have got a single game day coming up. But with those kind of stats, perhaps he's not the kind of player we should be looking at in Sky. I've got 5 players outside of that though that I'm keen on. One's Tavernier from Bournemouth. He was on all set pieces. Had a really successful spell at Middlesbrough last season. He's another budget enabler, 6.8 million. So whilst I'm not making these moves now, I think I'm kind of in the same transfer mindset as what you are at the moment. If I do some rejigging to get to a position where I've got more premiums in my team, I would definitely be keeping tabs on how he's doing over the next few weeks. And I think after Gameweek 4, they go on a really fantastic run, Bournemouth, really good fixtures. So at 6.8 million, he's definitely someone I'll be keeping my eye on. Anderson from Crystal Palace. So Crystal Palace got an evil start in terms of their fixture difficulty, but managed to pick up tackle bonus and passing bonus. And all Crystal Palace fans rave about him and Gehi. Gehi's 8 million and Anderson's 7.9 million. So someone that's going to pick up passing regularly, if Crystal Palace can add clean sheets when their fixtures turn as well. Looking for a second match day in a game week in which we could hop on and perhaps again a bit of a restructure there. Anderson's definitely someone I'm keeping my eye on.
Yeah, they got a horrible start, haven't they? And then it picks up.
Yep. Gundogan. So I think if Bernardo Silva leaves to go to Barcelona, that Gundogan at 8.2 million, I didn't realise he was that cheap. Again, another player I'm keeping eyes on, and it's less eyes on how Man City are playing and more eyes on the transfers that are happening out of Man City to see if he will be nailed again. I think at 8.2 million, if he is, he could end up providing really good value as well.
Good stuff. Yeah.
And the last two players I've got are both another two budget enablers. So I mean, if you go down the budget enabler route and you get backed into a corner where your player gets injured, historically you can get off a 5.1 million Callum Patterson very easily without two moves, whereas it looks like there's multiple options here. So the first one's Lavia. You mentioned them earlier on, 50 passes, 2 tackles at the weekend for Southampton. You're thinking maybe some easier fixtures, he might pick up a bit more bonus. Another one's, I think it's Caicedo from Brighton. Yeah. With them losing Basuma, they need that enforcer type player in the middle of the park. 6.8 million. He picked up tackling bonus against Man United the weekend, and I thought he was excellent yesterday. So there's a multitude of options around that 6.5 to 7 million bracket, and is putting 2 of them in overkill. So a Caicedo and a Palhinha. I'm not too convinced it's too discerning if they're picking up tackling bonus and then maybe even the odd passing or odd offensive return. I think both would provide good value and allow you to move around the premiums a lot more and perhaps using less transfers on getting premiums in and out.
It's interesting because I think with those two, like I say, we mentioned Saliba, Fofana, maybe Romero, Dyer.
Yeah,
probably. Last week and the week before we were saying how hard it is to build a team, but actually it could be a hell of a lot easier, couldn't it? In a week or two, you could easily probably squeeze in Van Dijk, Cancelo, Salah, Son or Kane, and maybe even Haaland if you go with 4 or 5 of those players. So it's gonna be really interesting to see how it pans out. Probably leave it another couple of weeks to settle down before make any kind of aggressive moves like that. Obviously, if you've got Thiago, obviously, there's an obvious move there, I think. But it looks like it could be reasonably straightforward to get to a pretty good side in a few weeks.
There's something I was going to mention. I've seen today, like this is maybe more FPL related. I saw a lot of conversations on Twitter. It's a bit of a hostile atmosphere on Twitter today, isn't it? Like it feels like, I think maybe like the people that went Haaland or maybe overgloating to others. I don't know if that was the kind of match that stemmed it all off. But I was thinking about like predictive models and such like that. I read a book recently called Football Hacks. It's by Christoph Biermann. So it's the science and art of the data of a data revolution, or the data revolution. It was talking about do you know how people associate Brentford with Moneyball?
Yeah.
Like the film Moneyball is about the baseball team and how Brad Pitt, the person that Brad Pitt and the person that Jonah Hill play, come up with this model about how you could predict using statistics how they could take advantage of that. And I think the misconception on Brentford's part is that they use data, but they use it in a different way than what Moneyball do. And the reason that you can't apply that model to football, or the thought of not being able to apply it to football, is it because a goal bears so much weighting on the outcome of a match in football, whereas it doesn't. It's not the same in sports where you've got high scoring mechanisms. So I thought it was interesting because we're talking about what I work in data as well, so I'm not going against predictive models and I'm not going against good data engineering as well. But it's so often easy to blame the outcome of something, like concentrate on the outcome of something and that's why I go back about that Man City transfer moves. I'm relating this back to Sky now. This is why I go back to the Man City transfer. If we're thinking that the top tier average points per game from a player is kind of like 7.5, that's a good outcome, especially at the kind of 9 million-ish range or below. Is like when we start thinking back to the value of a transfer, I would be wanting at least that on one transfer for one game, and predicting that over the space of a sample size of 2 games to get that average is so difficult to get out. That's like it's easy to say. It's easy to say at the end of this, if I got 20 points from the Man City defenders and I moved back to the Liverpool defender, it was the right decision. I'm not. Yeah, I'm still not.
You just got to look at, for those who've seen the highlights, if Son had have passed to Kane for an open goal, tapping, suddenly everything looks really different. And he would have done that last season. He's probably, he's got the golden boot. He's thinking, no, I want to be. But he had a simple 6-yard sideways pass. He would never have done what he did last year. And even Rashford, if you look at the XG on that Rashford chance, it's probably incredibly high. Like Sanchez stuck out an arm. I don't think he meant to save it. Even save it with that arm, really. If that goes in, I saw a comment in the chat earlier. I'm sick of Rashford already. I'm like, well, did you see that chance? It was, if he'd have put it anywhere except there in the whole goal, it would have been a goal. And all of a sudden, it looks like a genius move. So I completely agree with you. I'd look at this is like one of my resolutions for this season is to watch more football. And if I hadn't have watched it this weekend, I maybe wouldn't have seen that Son to Kane chance, because it wouldn't have even registered as anything for Kane, because obviously it didn't go to him, but it was a big chance for Kane if you look at it in a certain way, or it should have been. And the Rashford chance, I mean, he could easily that was easily a goal, and was it saves? I think it's things like that. Watching football is important. I completely agree with you. Kane in the next 2 games. Would you be massively surprised if Kane and Son got a goal and assist each against Chelsea? Because I wouldn't. And then they got Wolves the week after. So, I agree. Using stats to determine an outcome over one game is just crazy. As we find out time and again when we get our 2-point captains in Sky, don't we, off things. So yeah, really good point there, Paul. I completely agree. Let's have a look ahead to Gameweek 2. Just the 3 game days again. Villa versus Everton, early kickoff. Wolves, Fulham, Southampton, Leeds, City, Bournemouth, the big one. Brighton, Newcastle, Arsenal, Leicester, Brentford, and Man United. You've got to guess that Haaland is going to be the overwhelming captain come Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, I think he's 96% owned in the top 1,000, which isn't a surprise, and 50% owned overall. Going by the way that I play the game, I think it's easy to suggest that he's going to be the most captain player on Saturday. So I'm not going to look outside of going him. Yeah,
you don't get to see the lineup, so those who are maybe thinking of potentially Ake. If he keeps his place, and you saw the lineup, it could be tempting, but we don't get to see the lineups there. Sunday's a more interesting one. Forest and West Ham. Johnson, as we know, is highly owned, and Chelsea against Spurs. So we've already mentioned about the Haaland to Kane or Son move, just for example.
Yeah.
Would you, are you tempted at all by looking at Dilo Romero? Just bearing in mind, obviously, that Spurs play again the following Saturday, which is the one they're home to Wolves. Wolves didn't look up to much against Leeds, I didn't think so. I'm definitely doing the move, and having Dilo Romero, I'm quite excited for that day. Spurs can get a result. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a tough call to make on who the best captaincy is. I would, if I had Jared Bowen, I'm not tempted to bring him in. I think he could, although I did think he looked pretty poor against Man City, in all honesty. But I think he's he's allowed an off day considering how good he was last season. I think the most natural thing would be to bring in Son or Kane and probably captain one of those. I don't know outside of that who I think the next best captaincy option is. I'm not sure I would captain Romero or Dyer. Dyer didn't make passing bonus against Southampton.
I was looking at some stats this morning, and Son had 4 shots all in the box, whereas Kane had less. Interesting. He did look dangerous. He did look further forward, I thought, than Kane. Just scrolling down now to try and find Kane. He's where is he? I can't even see. He must have had 2, but Son. According to the stats and probably the eye test, Son probably looked a bit more advanced than Kane. So just an interesting one, because if that carries on from last season, Son could be the one potentially instead of Kane, couldn't he?
I'm right in thinking that Kane had the best expected goal involvement since Conte took over out of the two of them.
Yes, you are.
But Son always outperforms his
you are.
expected goals. So to weigh that up, I think people might be bound, like I would be, with no 5-4-1 formation, but they would have to go Kane rather than Son. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't advise against bringing Son and captain.
So just based on the game of the weekend, Son had 4 shots, 4 in the box. Kane had 2 shots, only 1 in the box. Kane had an XG of 0.32 and an XA of 0.14. Expected points of 4. These are FPL points. Have a quick look at Son, but I know his was better. 4 shots, 2 on target, 4 in the box, XG of 0.37, XA of 0.26 as well, obviously because he's on set piece. He's got the assist for Dyer, and expected points in FPL of 5.69. So Son was clearly the more attacking threat, but obviously that's only based on a 1 game sample. But it does seem to carry on from the end of last season, which is interesting.
Yeah, you're using one of the Hub's great tools to get your expected
Obviously, Opta-Stats, it's all there.
So not a 50% discount at the moment?
It is a 50% discount. You know me, mate. I'm not one to shout out. fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, 50% off. You can look at all these Opta-Stats yourself. Looking at Monday the 15th then, Liverpool against Palace. Probably an easy one for if you own Salah.
I think one of the questions that came in was about whether I would consider captaining Van Dijk over Salah. I guess if you had moved Salah maybe on to Haaland or something like that, would you be convinced to move back? I think Salah's got an attack and return in his last 7 or 8 games against at least one attack and return in the last 7 or 8 games versus Crystal Palace. Now, do you believe that players, that historic stats of players against certain clubs mean future outputs? There's something in football that these things just seem to happen over and over again, isn't there?
So and so haven't beaten so and so in. Well, look at Brighton and Man United on the weekend, wasn't it? Is this the first time they've? I'm not sure it's ever beaten them. Was it ever beaten them at Old Trafford or beaten them in the Premier League or something?
But they're saying that Pascal Gross has scored as many goals against Man United than he's scored against anybody else, or some crazy stuff.
It is. So Salah's the man on Monday evening. We've had quite a lot of questions. Start off with a Liverpool question. Good one, actually. Aman Tatler, too early to bring in Nunez and maybe change Salah to Son. I personally wouldn't do that. You'd obviously see the lineup for Liverpool. What do you think of Nunez and how do you squeeze him in, Paul?
Yeah, he looked very, very lively, didn't he?
Ex-lively.
I guess he epitomised the thought on how he plays, and that he will get lots and lots of chances, and he doesn't look like necessarily a natural finisher. But then when you get presented with that many chances, you're going to score goals, right? Or you're going to
get shots bonus. And he takes a lot of shots.
Yeah, so he's up. Like I gave him my watch list, and he wasn't there. I'd say he's on my watch list. He's a wait and see for me. I think with the captaincy coverage elsewhere, I'm happy to sit with Salah just now. And with me wanting a City, Liverpool, and Spurs attacker, he's probably. I don't want to make multiple moves and then price me out of getting Salah back. So I think that's where I'm at just now.
I love
Wait
how
and see,
Lavia is on your watch list and Darwin Núñez isn't. Four shots on the weekend. Bear in mind, he only played, what did he play, 20 minutes? 4 shots, 3 on target, 4 in the box, 3 big chances, an XG of 1.46, an XA of 0.69, 10.62 expected points in FPL in about 20-25 minutes.
So what is it you said at the start of the season to me? Oh, we need to think about getting the budget enablers in quickly, right? So I'm doing that, and you come back and criticising me. Oh, brilliant!
Well, no,
brilliant.
I suppose the point I'm making is by going to Lavia or whoever,
exactly,
you can then afford to potentially, imagine a team where you've got 4 really cheap enablers plus maybe, I don't know, Dyer and Van Dijk or Cancelo, for example, Salah, and then you could, Salah or Son or wherever, and then you could even maybe, go Kane and Haaland, but you could switch around Núñez with them to get, to maximise the Salah and Núñez and then move off and whatever else. That's dreamland.
I know you were teeing me up to give that answer, but I just took it as opportunity to bury you back with something that you had said earlier. So.
Who to replace Thiago with? So Tom Hartnell and Noli both got Thiago. So my answer with this would be move down, release some budget personally. They're thinking Wilson, maybe Zinchenko, but I would go down to a 6.6, 6.8, release the budget. Paul?
Yeah, have a semi-plan, and if you don't think that you need the budget to restructure, perhaps you're happy with the rest of the team and you're cool with that, then move to one of those players. But if you don't have a plan, perhaps moving down, like you've suggested, is a good way to go as well. Especially if you don't have Palhinha, because I still think that he will be the best budget option longer term.
We've had a lot of questions around kind of transfer use, which is so interesting. They'll ask, is any transfer a good transfer if you hit that 15 to 20 point marker? So what we were asking, is it too early to make moves? That's Dale's. And John Burt, do you agree that with extra transfers, be able to make a lot more tactical moves? I started badly, but not afraid to use a transfer straight away, and it paid dividends. So I suppose we spoke about this kind of already, just the value of a transfer and things. I can't help but every single pot, and I purposely listened back at the start of this season to our learnings one from the end of that, and I did the same with Green Arrow. I did the same with all the pods I'm on, and the learnings are always the same. They're always the same every single season. Is just remember at the end of last season how we would have loved an extra transfer or two to really hammer into a really big 3-for-1, for example, or to replace an injured player, or to make some really high upside move. And I just can't get that out of my head. So don't get me wrong, I wouldn't be sitting idle on my team if I had a couple of players to replace if someone didn't start, or there's a mega like Haaland to Bournemouth next week is potentially one of the most upside fixtures of the whole season. You could say. So I would be doing that one. But anything more to add on that, Paul? Like transfers?
I mean, if I valued a transfer at 15 to 20 points still, which I was valuing it last season, then like doing like gaining one extra fixture out of a player unless they go on a run of fixtures and the player that you're taking out has got poor fixtures or is injured, just wouldn't make sense if I valued a transfer at that. Going a little bit lower, I think this is what I was saying earlier on, is it's still hard for me. I'm still finding it difficult to gauge what I think the value of a transfer is worth now that they've upped another 10 over the season. So that's what's an extra 1 per every 4 game weeks. Maybe being a little bit more fluid with transfers is the way to go, but I'm trying to just feel my way around without committing myself to doing the transfers just now to come to that conclusion myself. And there'll be multiple opportunities again, like we've said. But I agree with the Haaland point. I think it's a plum fixture for a person that's going to be very, very, very highly owned and captained, and therefore that made sense.
Couple of good questions around off Dave Silk with golf in his second last season. Great interview over on Planet FPL as well, Dave. Really enjoyed that. Can Cancelo keep up with Haaland over the season? It's a good question. So, we raving about Haaland, scored 14 points, but let's not forget, Cancelo scored 9 and got booked. Ake, Diaz, whatever, all scored 10. It wasn't like that was a chicken feed, right? And he also asks, is it too late to buy Haaland for Kane? But it would mean captaining Dyer over Kane on Sunday. Whoosh. What do you think about
that? Yeah, this is the... I'm looking at Gameweek 2 as part of the reason why I did the Haaland move. Well, I started in one of my teams with Haaland, and one of them I moved on to him, and I think that was the reason was never the West Ham game, and even depending on output, even if you had been quiet against West Ham, I'd still want to have captained them in this game. So go back to the first question. I don't think it'd be unfair to say that Cancelo will score similar points this season as what he scored last season. I expect Man City to be as resolute and keep roughly the same amount of clean sheets. Cancelo never relied on man of the match points, which is the only difference for him, really, in terms of the points he can score. Do you expect Haaland to have a season like Salah? Because I think Salah was one of the few players that outscored Cancelo last season.
Yeah.
So I think for the most part, Cancelo will be relatively close, and I think he'll be a better value pick if he was. Well, in fact, he's 11 million, isn't he? Thinking back to last season when he was like 9 point something.
He's only 0.5.
So the value, I think they'll be about par in terms of value over the course of the season. Would be my prediction.
The problem is the captaincy.
It's the holes
thrown in. It's the holes. That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah.
And captaining Haaland and sitting with Cancelo is probably going to be the norm across the board.
Sky FF Flyer, currently on Gibbs White as an enabler. Is it worth a transfer to swap to Paulinho? Give it more time. I would give it more time. Definitely, it's a bit too early. It may have been just with Paulinho, just because he got all those tackles against Liverpool, which you would probably expect, is not to say, he'll get them every game. That was a plum fixture for tackles, I would say. And he also asks,
I had a look at that question specifically, and I tried to find where Fulham were playing on at least match day 2, and for the first 10 weeks, Fulham don't play.
Right.
On that, Fulham always play first, so I would always need to be a straight swap if you were doing it.
Got to leave at the moment. That is a proper luxury transfer. He also asks, who scores more points of the season, Kulusevski or Bruno G?
I'm still not as on the Bruno G train as much as others.
He lost his tackle bonus overnight, didn't he, on the weekend?
Yeah.
Harsh on owners.
I don't expect him to pick up passing bonus every week as well, albeit he was playing more defensive. I think I mentioned this on our last pod. I think it's maybe to do with the formation change with Shelby not playing.
I just don't like the fixtures. They got.
Yeah, I think Kulusevski scores. I think Kulusevski scores more for the season.
They're away to Brighton, and then home to Man City, then away to Wolves, then home. So Newcastle are away 3 times in the next 4, and the home game, was against Man City. I think it's quite tough.
Yeah, you did he obviously has that ability to pick up tackling bonus against any player. So you are going to get a steady stream of points. So I'm not suggesting he's a bad pick for that reason. I just think we're losing man of the match, because for me, he was clearly man of the match at the weekend. I thought he was excellent. I think he's an excellent player as well. But if they'd kept the man of the match, I think he's a much more valuable asset than perhaps what he's without it.
Dan Cox, is Fred going to hit the 20-point target after 4 games? Hooked on 53. What? Did I say 20 points after 4 games or 5 games? I said 4. What? He averaged 5 points a game. What a tit. What did I say that for?
I thought that was very, very bold.
Bold? So what's he on? 1 point or 2?
2.
Oh, 2's all right. What was it? 18 and 3. That's not happening, is it? Well, he's got to score.
Yeah.
He has to score a goal in those 3. Yeah. I'd say he wasn't hooked. Like, if you look at the Don't roll your eyes.
What's your definition of hooked?
He was taken off. He was taken off
yeah,
for an
well,
attacker.
yeah.
Like hooked. Hooked to me is playing bloody awful. Get off the pitch is what I'd say hooked. But he was obviously taken off.
I wouldn't have said he played well.
I'm not sure I say he played well, but he's one of those. He's one of very, very few Man United players who puts the work in. Still, but yeah, we'll see in the upcoming games.
What's the forfeit? Money to charity, £5 to charity.
Is that what it was? Is it?
Well, I don't know that we set something.
£5 to charity. It is.
Okay. Right.
I'll tell you what. I'll do a donation to charity for every point he gets below the 20. So it could be. Oh no, I've just cost myself more. I probably cost myself about £15 now. I'll do that though. I'll do that. Thanks, Dan, for reminding me about that. Kane or Son, we've answered that. Salah or VVD. Gordon asks around defensive numbers for Brighton falling off a cliff recently. Yeah, we noticed that end of the season.
Yeah.
And
I've always liked Duncan. Sky Fantasy Football. He's been one of my favourite players over the years. He's always served me well.
We've answered most of the others. Last one from Ian Parrin. What's your reaction to 3 players having ownership of 50% and another handful between 20 to 30? I think I said this last week. I think the ownership is a lot more spread at the start of the season because there's so many really good options. What are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, those percentages are high. But then when you look in the top 1,000 just now, so after I read Ian's question, I went and had a look at some players that you would expect to have much higher ownership in general, like Van Dijk, for example. And somebody will prove me wrong. In fact, I'll get it just now so I don't say anything wrong. Van Dijk's ownership in the top 1,000 is 6.5%.
Yeah.
So I'm not too concerned about some of the high ownerships just now. I think that we'll move, and if that's moving in a wave, because a lot of people have Van Dijk outside the top 1,000 that are engaged managers that you'd expect to do well over the course of the season, then it'll be a slower climb, but I still think it'll be a climb.
Yeah, agree. And that's it for the question. Thank you so much for everyone who's sent in the questions. Just a couple more from the chat. Alan M says he's going to be aggressive this season. KDB and Haaland versus Bournemouth. He's going to use a few transfers. Still planning having plenty for post-World Cup. And Tony says, keeping 5 or so players, then moving my big hitters around. I could start with 119 points. Well done. Billy Fraser asks around, is Tielemans a good option? I got to be fair, I thought he looked really, really good yesterday. I haven't seen his points, but
he picked up double bonus.
He did he? I saw he had a lot of shots, and he put in a beautiful cross, which Fafana hit the post, I think. So he's looking really good.
I just don't know that. There's so much uncertainty at Leicester just now because his contract's up next summer, isn't there? So Arsenal are still pursuing him, and Maddison and Fafana, there's question marks around all 3 of those. So it's another wait and see. I like Tielemans as a Sky asset, and if he's nailed on to play, then I think he'd be a great option for the season. It's a little bit of a wait and see for Leicester, and I think the ideal opportunity might be against the Man United single game day, which is on Thursday, the 1st of September. The transfer window's closed at that point, so anybody that's staying will stay, and if there is any new recruits, then they'll be in place as well. So perhaps that's the hop on point that I'd be looking at.
I was going to say they play Arsenal and Chelsea away in the next 3, so definitely not a jump on point yet. That is it for us for this evening. Thank you so much. We really hope you enjoyed. Thank you all for watching and listening. Your continued support is much appreciated. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please make sure you do. Thank you, Paul. Where can people find you?
On Twitter at Paul McAnulty, 1 MCANULTY.
My Twitter handle is at FFH_Fergi. If you like what you watched, please press like and remember to subscribe in the bottom right corner of the screen. And if you enjoyed your listen, please go and rate the podcast version and leave some comments. We appreciate all of them. We'll be back next Monday reviewing the weekend's action and looking ahead to Sky Game Week 3. Have a great week all, and goodbye for now.